Welcome back to Empathetic Educators. I'm your host, Neil Toland, and today we have Craig Kemp and Sandra Chow coming on the show, and I'm so excited to share all the takeaways we have today. Let's get started. I am so excited to have you on the show today with us, and also having the two guests on the show today too. We are looking at all the different areas of empathetic educators. So we're looking at growth, relationships, accountability, challenges, and this season we're looking at the theme of systems. And I'm so excited to talk about this with these guests today because they have so many different perspectives coming in from the different areas of the world that they're living in. So without further ado, let's get our two guests on the screen. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having us.
So great to have you on board today. So maybe while we have some people coming on the show, I'm going to let people know, if they don't know you already, let them know a bit about you. Maybe Sandra, we'll start with you today.
Hi, sure. My name is Sandra Chow. I'm the Director of Digital and Innovative Learning here in Beijing, China at Keystone Academy. I'm originally from Canada in Toronto, and I know Naomi actually because we were doing various workshops, and she came in because she loved Harry Potter. she joined this workshop, but she came in this awesome Harry Potter outfit.
It was a great connection, wasn't it? It was like, yeah, the stars aligned. We were like, woohoo! It was so good. And Craig, yeah, let us know a little bit about you.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, Naomi, thank you so much for having me here today. Hi, everyone. My name's Craig Kemp. I'm a New Zealand-born educator. Lived in Singapore now for the past 9 years. I'm a primary trained teacher with more than 15 years of experience, both in the classroom and as a leader. My last role was Director of Educational Technology and Innovation at a large 3,200 student American international school here in Singapore. 2 years ago, I left that role, started my own consultancy company, Ignite EdTech. I love my role now because I get to work with such a diverse range of students, teachers, leaders, and EdTech companies all over the world to help them move from surviving to thriving. Totally looking forward to today. I've been watching all of your other episodes, Naomi. Let's do this.
Let's go. Oh, so good to have you on board, Craig. Thank you. And it's really great to have those perspectives in both of you, all the experience that you're bringing to the table. And it's great to have a little bit, we're moving more towards the Asia area today because you're coming from Singapore and China and Tokyo. But we also have people coming in. We've got Eileen coming in, excited to be here with everyone. Coming in from Kuwait, I think Eileen's in at the minute. And we obviously got Georgina as well coming in. Good afternoon from Amman in Jordan. So it's great to learn from each other and excited to be here. So if you are listening or watching, let us know in the comments, and you can join in with the conversation too. Great to have you here. Actually, just saying that us meeting up before, normally at the end of the show we have Global Light Unite, but I just wanted to put a little picture up of us in Singapore all together. It was one of the last trips that I had flying, apart from flying to Japan, and it's just so good to have like those relationships physically and digitally, which we will be sharing together. But I just love these two photographs of us all together. So yeah, it was a great little thing.
That was fun time.
Yeah, it was a great little sharing that in Singapore as well. So we're going to move on to like that idea of physical and digital sharing and just like meeting up with each other, but more in the area of like you say, moving from surviving to thriving, Craig. And the first question that I was wondering if we could like touch upon, I was listening to one of your sessions with you and talking about on your podcast, Ignite EdTech podcast, and you were saying without the human factor, technology cannot often solve the problem we have. Pedagogy first, technology second. And it really, really struck me listening to this, because I have been kind of thinking about what does technology mean for us now? How are we stepping forward in this world of trying to navigate? And so in your experience working with schools as a leader or as a consultant, how have you seen systems or environments successfully implement new technology or ideas when there are lots of different levels of expertise to consider? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a quote that I use quite a lot. It's a quote that I love. Really, I built my extended career now on it, actually. You know, coming from a primary trained background, pedagogy is at the heart of everything I do. You know, that whole idea of learning. And now, you know, as someone that works with adult learners a lot as well, it's that idea of andragogy as well, how do adults learn and think. So, you know, as a consultant now, I preach this everywhere I go. So many of the schools I work with who call out for help, they call out for help because they haven't put time and energy into building these successful edtech plans or strategies, and they've thrown technology at students and teachers and expected it to solve a problem. I see it all the time, and unfortunately that's not how technology works, although sometimes I wish it did. You know, technology works best when it's paired with that human influence, that human touch, the ability for a human to manipulate, you know, contextualize, arrange technology in the best ways to support the needs of all the learners, is how new tools and implementations become successful. You know, a couple of other quotes, you know, as you were talking to me, come to mind, things that I love that I sort of want to tie into my thinking here. The first one is, I use this all the time, from Simon Sinek: people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And another one that I hear often in multiple sources is, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And, you know, if you've heard me speak before or listen to any of the podcasts, you'll know how passionate I am about knowing your why. And if the why isn't solidified, you know, in this technology change or implementation, it's never going to be successful. And, you know, we all know this from the work that we do in all of our spaces and contexts. And it really highlights the need for us to keep pedagogy or learning at the forefront of our mind with every technology decision we make in our school. Actually, every decision we make in our school, whether technology is involved or not. And, you know, when it comes to that implementation process, this is, again, something that I've done a lot of in schools all over the world. And the one thing I always tell schools and school leaders is that if the culture isn't a focus, then the strategy will never be successful. You know, a culture where change is accepted, where technology is endorsed, where learning is at the core of everything your people do. If you want the strategy to be successful, then build a culture where learning and change is accepted and encouraged. And, you know, to finally sort of to finish this bit out, I've talked a lot in here, but I'm passionate about it. You know, I wanted to point out that, you know, all schools are the same when it comes to the people you have in your building. Now, I've worked at, you know, I was counting the other day, 35 schools over the past 12 months, both physically and virtually. And we all have what I call laggards in our building, those people who negatively frame everything, push back on any change. They often say things like, this is the way I've always done things. Why should I change? Every school has those people. But we also have innovators, 10% of people like you and Sandra, and a lot of the people probably tuning in here today, the innovators that try new things, take risks, jump at opportunities. And then I guess the exciting part is that every school has this pool of people in the middle, the majority of that innovation curve. You know, the focus when we're trying to make any change is not investing in those laggards. Leave them. You know, you'll invest 10% of time on them and waste 80% of your energy. So use your time wisely and focus on those early adopters, the teachers that want to learn, want to grow. I call it the teacher next door model, you know, sharing something teacher to teacher rather than an edtech guru standing up and sharing something. You know, that you're more likely to follow them and change practice in that way.
Well, that's the session over. Goodbye. See you later. That's it's done now. That's like, so many takeaways from that. So many takeaways, Craig. I think that's like, it's, I love the idea of like define your why, because having Barbara Bray on the show last, her book literally is Define Your Why. And we were talking about like that idea of supporting your teachers to define their why and then implementing that define your why in the classroom. I love like that idea of like, because I think sometimes what we do to teachers in PD versus what we expect them to be doing in class are very different things. So if they're not experiencing what we're expecting them to do, then how are they ever going to be able to do it as well? So like, how can they see it? How can they do it? And I think like Georgina said, is couldn't agree more. Andragogy will be critical moving forward with self-paced like personal learning. And I love the idea of like the strategy part of it, because like you say, if we're not helping like the teachers understand that's that in that space, then it's going to end up being tricky for them to actually move forward in their own environments in the classroom too. So yeah, it's great takeaways from that whole part as well. Yeah, Sandra, what are your connections to the question about how can we set up systems, but also what Craig said as well?
Yeah, and actually, I really I resonate a lot with what Craig said, and I know when you look at that innovation curve, there's some different types of terminology that have come in, and one that I really liked was came from Apple actually, where similar, instead of calling them laggards, they built this scenario of an island. And this island is going to go up in flames and it's going to go down, and you need to move your company or your organization or your school to this other new island with new possibilities. But you've got those who are swimmers who jump right in and try it, so are innovators. And you've got your shark watchers who are cautious. They see the need to go there, but they're still worried. So you're kind of early adopters, but still kind of cautious about it. And then you've got your flagpole holders who are like, no, I got to stay on this island. I don't care that it's going up in flames. It's what I'm familiar with. I'm going to stay here, whether it sinks or not. And one thing why I brought that up was because sometimes actually it's easy to focus also on those innovators because they're excited and they're already up ahead and moving miles ahead, but actually those shark watchers are also those ones that we need to be to embrace, because they actually have they're in support of the move, but they've just got some concerns, and some of those concerns are sometimes very valid. And if you can address some of those valid concerns, these shark watchers will join you on this boat and voyage towards this new island. But what might also happen is they might convince some of those flagpole holders as well to move along in this journey. And kind of talking about that culture shift, it's a much healthier culture shift if you can build in some of those cautious shark watcher worries and address them and look at ways that you can actually help the culture move along in a way that's a little bit more smooth. So I really like that model that Apple often shares with their Apple Distinguished Educators. Kind of along that same line, I think, in building systems, I think the COVID helped a lot in moving some of the technology advancement forward. But there was another framework or model that really helped our school along as well. And that came from Jennifer Chang-Wathel. And she had this stages of e-learning, where she talks about how, and Craig used these same terms, survive, and then move to, I think, thrive, and there's arrive. I'm missing one actually. But their 4 stages were really helpful, because in the very early stages when they're surviving, as much as you want to focus on pedagogy in order to get people just lifted up off the feet so that they weren't just sinking and trying to just survive, helping them with some of their basic system tools were really important. So that could be your Google tools. In our case, we were Microsoft tools. We needed our teachers to know at basic how to do video conferencing with their students so that they could connect with their students. We needed them to know how to record a video so that they could do asynchronous learning with students. And once they at least felt that they had those basic things to keep them afloat, that they weren't going to drown, then we were able to move into, okay, let's choose tools that actually help you in your learning. Which ones will actually really benefit your students? Which ones will help you with your feedback and assessments? Which one will really help you in making the thinking visible so that you can properly assess what the students want? But the teachers weren't ready for that because they were in survive mode. But once they were in the thrive mode, then you were able to bring in some of those tools that can uplift their pedagogy a little bit more. And then once they were in they arrive, they are pretty much ready to go into those swimming mode or the innovator mode and try really new innovative techniques.
I really like I think the whole underlying tone of all that is like the culture part of it, like exactly like what Craig said, is like that trust part. So like you're meeting the teachers where, because we expect to meet the kids where they're at, but sometimes we can say to the teachers, right, we need to do this, do this, do this, do this, but then instead of like telling them what we need to do, meet the teachers where they're at, like you say, listening to what they need, listening to what they need to learn, and then seeing what they need and going from there. So that's their why of, why should I listen to you? I like, why should I do that? It's actually understanding that from them too. So yeah, it's that culture is so important of trust. Because I think for me, I've experienced sometimes where teachers aren't heard, and then you're like, but why are you telling me to do this? Like what do I need that for right this second? And it almost builds up frustration because you're not seeing the why, like you said, Craig. And then you're like, just, and then like you said, Sandra, like the why is, especially with COVID, there's been so much of a technology why that it's just like, give me the technology. So the pedagogy goes along with that too. So yeah, it's yeah, that's cool. It's like definitely a big systems, but that why, yeah, it's not just meeting the kids where they're at, it's meeting teachers where they're at as well, which is, yeah, very important. Thank you. Like really good takeaways from that. And I think it's such an important conversation to have. And I think, like you said, Craig, it's been your business has taken off recently because like it's all those different skills are really in the need for actually knowing why what is happening with it. And I think like the next little part of it is kind of like a little bit of a fun part of it. And I think you said, Craig, I can't believe you don't like, do you not really watch movies or music?
No, that's not quite true. I do like movies. I wouldn't say I'm a guru. You know, I love movies and I love music. I wouldn't say I'm a guru, and I'm actually pretty poor at remembering things. Whenever I watch movies or listen to music, I often zone out. It's my own to sit back. And so if I'm watching a movie that requires a lot of focus, then it's hard. But the one I'm going to talk about is an interesting one because that's sort of the opposite of the way I feel about movies. But yeah,
whenever you said it, I was like, what? But yeah, so we'll start with Sandra. Your song, whenever I heard it, so my mom's probably watching it at the minute, and like your song, I was like, that's so cute because she always talks about whenever like we're away from each other, I see the moon and she sees the moon, and it's the same moon. So it's really nice to hear your little song. But yeah, I'm going to put it up on the screen. Let us know what this means for you. So I asked every session that we have teachers and parents and people coming on and sharing their movies and their music and why that motivates you and what that means to you. So yeah, let us know a little bit about your song and what that means to you.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking about, being away, coming overseas and being in China, even though I am Chinese, but my heart is still in Canada. My family's in Canada, a lot of my friends, and I've taught in Canada for over 16 years. It's my home, and but I feel like the work being here is very important, and it's been a really great learning experience for my kids. Just to be, it's one thing to talk about being global, but actually to be in another country, to be displaced, to learn about other cultures, to live with people from all over the world. We're a boarding school, and our community is very diverse. Has been an amazing experience for my kids, but it doesn't mean that they don't miss where they're from. And I think it's helpful to know that even though we're miles away from our friends, our family, or even people we've met along the way, like Naomi, I met you in Australia, now you're in Japan. Craig, I met you actually here in China, but you're in Singapore. I really appreciate those connections I've made with different educators around the world. And even though we've been really apart, Twitter or social media has really brought people together, and being able to connect even in this way where we're still able to talk is really special. And to know that we all go through the same things. We're all experiencing COVID right now. We're all missing our family in different ways. And we're all educators with the same heart to make a difference for the students who are coming up, and that they can make an impact in the world that they'll be in. I think that song not only talks about the distance that we have, but it unites us all together in some way. And I think that's really special, that we're not one. We're not by ourselves ever. We're united globally.
I love that. And I love like that. Like it's so nice. Like even though I know how very far apart we are, it helps to think we might be wishing on the same bright star. And I love that. Like I think cause you actually said this, the reason why I got so inspired by actually Noah Daniel's work. And that's why I love bringing like the music side into it. And I think like I listened to this as well from your point of view on that show. And I love like listening to your takeaways. But like you say, as global educators sometimes, because people do say to me, how do you deal with being away from family? How do you cope with like being on that side of it? And so I think like for me it is like a big part of like missing family, like that is like that's the biggest downfall, is missing family and missing friends and being away from all that. But like you say, there's a big mission that like I see myself part of, and like a lot of us see ourselves part of. Like you weigh up the pros and cons of being away versus actually experiencing what you need to do in this minute in time. And I love like sharing that like together and knowing that like that's okay to feel that way too. Like we all kind of go through those like ups and downs and struggles, but actually we're united in those feelings as well. So yeah, it's so nice to have that. And yeah, so I think and then Eileen saying as well, like relating into like being grateful for what we have as well is just so important. And Craig, what's your takeaway from the movie that we're looking at, that you don't normally watch but you do watch, and you do kind of like movies but you don't really
I think you should act it out.
Yes, can you act it out? Do you like acting instead of actually watching?
I can definitely not act it out. It's too
Love
early
it.
in the day for that.
Maybe on a Friday night we'll be fine. But you're right. Yeah, let us know your quote and let us know what it means to you.
So, my favorite movie of all time, I'm definitely not a movie guru, but, I must have watched this movie 10, 12 times, and I always get something new from it. It's the Shawshank Redemption, and it's a movie I've watched, I think, since I was probably 18 or 19, all the way through to now. And, every time I watch it, and as I grow up as well, I guess, that I see different things within the movie. And this one sort of sticks to me. The world went and got itself in a big damn hurry. And it's from the old man Brooks Hatlin, when he gets out into the big wide world and sees how much has changed before his eyes while he's been stuck in prison. And, I think it ties back a little bit to what Sandra was talking about too, the life of an expat educator. We left New Zealand not because we didn't love it. We left our family and our friends and, everything we had to try something new. And we thought we'd go back, and we never did. But, I think to myself now, and this is a hard thing to share with people back home because they just don't get it, is, life as an expat educator for me is incredible. Life as the ability to travel and see new things. And, I feel like I would have been stuck in the prison, I guess, of that rut and that normal day-to-day operation, that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to see what's possible and what's out there. My career has changed because I've got out of that comfort zone. I've pushed things, I've tried new things, I've taken risks. Everything that we say for our kids to do, I've had the opportunity to do. Would I be able to do that in New Zealand? I don't think so. Not on the same level, unless I'd moved and changed and adapted my thinking in some way, shape, or form. And I guess in a way, that whole idea of, how the world's changing so quickly and has changed, and, it's scary too. But I think it ties back to what I was talking about before with EdTech strategy and stuff, jump on board or jump off. It's the whole idea of get amongst it now. And how do we help people that we work with jump on board and take advantage of, the opportunities that are in front of them. So yeah, that's sort of my big thing and my big takeaway.
And I think like relating back to like Sandra saying about like the idea of it's okay to say you're global, but actually like getting yourself uprooted, going there and doing all those things and like experiencing the hardships as well as the amazing positives of what's going on. Like you say, like we're all connected in that, but also we're all on our own little journey at different stages. Like that, like obviously empathetic educators is all about empathy and that care and that walking in each other's shoes, putting ourselves into those different difficult situations. It might not be the exact same, but we've actually felt the challenges and like the amazing positives of what's going through. And like you say, like it connects that connectedness that you can feel as well. So yeah, it's great. And I think, like Georgina says, it's being an educational leader internationally means that we have greater empathy and richer teaching and learning experiences. Agreed. And but I think it goes back as well. Like you say, it's not that you didn't like New Zealand or didn't like Toronto, didn't like all those things. Like I love, like every time I go home, it's just that complete safe feeling of like being home. And it also makes me feel more connected to home because I make intentional, like I'm trying to like talk to my mom and daddy more, try and talk to my friends more, and trying to like be like that connected to them, even though I'm not there too. So I'm like, yeah, it's the connectedness is what we're trying to achieve. So yeah, thank you for sharing your personal little movie and songs that you have. And I think the next question, it kind of ties together, Sandra, to what we're talking about, those challenges that we put ourselves into. And I love this takeaway from actually Noel Daniels' session that you were on, and you said a lot of times when we say goodbye, there is a change in their journey or my journey. Change can be challenging, but change can also bring new, exciting opportunities. And I love that quote, and it really ties into what we're sharing at the minute about being global and being away from home and challenging ourselves. So like it says, you're a global innovator. What have you learned personally and professionally about moving to different countries and experiencing different systems? So it really ties into what Craig's saying at the minute and what we're saying at the minute too. Yeah, what's your takeaways from that?
Yeah, so the first time I moved away was when we went to Taiwan, and one of the things I realized is how different people are everywhere. I think I grew up in Canada watching a lot of US TV and thinking, oh, Canadians and Americans are very similar. But it wasn't until I went all the way to Taiwan working in an American school that I realized, oh, wow, like we think very differently. We behave or we react very differently to different things. And then it helps me to realize that there's a lot more to my perspective of things, that there's a lot of different perspectives out there. And I think that's really important to understand because especially as the world is getting more and more globalized, the perspectives of different people around the world is really important. And I think if we can tap into the ideas of people globally, that's where true innovation can come in, because we can take an idea from Japan or from China and Singapore and Chile and Canada and kind of mix them all together and come up with our best solutions together. And I think that's really powerful if we can make that happen. One of the other things I've realized coming here to China is I know a little bit about Chinese culture, but there's a lot to really understand that perspective sometimes, because there's so many layers, from historical layers to family layers, and to societal layers, and kind of teasing out the thinking and the rationale and the whys of why people do things takes time. And then once you figure that out, then bringing those perspectives to the table to truly collaborate takes even more time. But I think it's really important for us to do. And I think that's something that I've been working on. It's a work in progress. I'm learning how strong my opinions and perspectives are ingrained in myself, and trying to let some of those go so that I can embrace new ideas. And I think the other thing that's really important also is being able to realize that people come from a lot of, everybody has their story as well. And another perspective I've gained from being overseas is when I was in Canada, you see all these immigrants coming in and you just kind of expect them to adapt into the situation that they're in. But now that I'm in their shoes, I'm the foreigner, I'm trying to figure out how the hospitals work and the banking system works, and it's all in a language that's not my own, and I'm signing these really important documents and signing my life away. I realize how challenging it is. And so understanding those layers and stories behind people, and being empathetic to that, so that we can better listen, better learn from each other, I think is really important.
I love that. And I think like you say, the layers part of it, that's why my biggest takeaway, it's all, yes, learning about the layers of other people, but learning about my layers. You know, like that's why, like you're saying, it's and like rather than just looking outward and looking into people, actually looking inward and seeing what your own perspectives are, and like things that I really held on to. And I think it's growing up as well and like maturing and doing different things, but things that I used to really hold on to as beliefs and like things that I believed, I have adapted and I have changed. And I think like now I'm like, I know as much as I know now, and this might change tomorrow. Like that's kind of the way I'd approach it now. And that's come from like being around people but the more, like you say, instead of just the layers of other people, actually the layers of inwardly looking inward too. I love that takeaway. Yeah, Craig, what's your connections to what Sandra's saying?
So many, so similar in so many ways in our journey. We've been in Singapore 9 years now, and I think the one thing that really resonated with me was the stories piece, and I think that comes back to listening more than you talk as well. Like really listening, not just listening to learn a language or listening, but really deep listening. What are those people trying to tell me? How can I help them? Rather than coming in, and this is something in like educational leadership stuff as well, not coming in and making massive changes immediately, but actually listening to your people. And I think that goes for both personally and professionally, the need to listen to people. And, we're outside of our comfort zones. I'm an expat in Singapore. While it's English speaking, I look and I feel and I engage like a foreigner all the time. And it's kind of enlightening in a way as well, coming from a country like New Zealand, where expats and people don't come from all around the world unless they're tourists. I'm living in a different country that's not my own. And that's something that's always in the forefront of my mind, and something for my kids as well. Even though I got a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, as you can see, these aren't my.
They're not your teddy bears. Not your teddy bear, Craig.
They are. They were both born in Singapore. Are true third culture kids. They and it's hard because I'm not a third culture kid, right? So I'm a Kiwi through and through, and I put myself in this world and in Singapore, and it's amazing, it's exciting, but it's something to think about as my kids grow up as well. What is home? What's that meaning of home? And I think that relates back to, the why I love being here. It's that connection, the opportunity to connect with people. We met because we were both on Twitter and we connected and engaged in this world, and the world seems so small in so many ways when you're connected. And I often say this about international educators: it's not what you know, it's who you know. The international education world is so well connected.
And I think like Eileen's saying, like, it's so true, Sandra. I grew up in Buffalo and thought Canadians and Americans were similar, but after working here in Kuwait, I even see that my attitudes towards teaching are different. Like, it's just like learning about perspectives, and it can happen at home. So I think like my like, you can still like challenge yourself, and you can still, it's all about that challenging yourself to do different. And like, even if you are staying at home for like all your life, it's like, well, how are you challenging yourself to like go out of your comfort zone? How are you challenging yourself to seek that perspective and understand it? And I think like that's what really, really resonates to me. Like, even like we got Lauren coming on as well, like listening to hear and not necessarily respond is an important part of collaboration and growth. I think, like you say, Sandra, like me being in Japan at the minute, it's so important from Georgina, like third culture kid. But I think like me being in Japan, it's really made me empathize with my kids. Like, I've got 100% EAL multilingual learners, and like me trying to teach them in a way, and me having to just navigate my whole world in Japanese. Like, I like you say, I'm signing stuff. I'm like trying to get on a train. I'm like, is that the right train? You like, and then you go to look for help. I think that's my biggest thing is you go to look for help, and you're just like, I don't know where to go. And you're like empathizing with those learners to say like they might want to seek help from me. and how do I show them that I'm open even though I can't communicate completely? Do you know, like that's what really, really taught me to like take a step back and say, oh, they might be looking for that. And how I feel whenever I'm kind of alone in that space, you know, like that empathy piece really, really struck me in that space for my learners too. So it's really, yeah, like you say, it's navigating that world too. Yeah.
And it makes a huge difference when you meet people who are kind to you.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding and patient. So I think that's the other takeaway is you've been in their shoes where you're lost, you're confused, and when somebody is kind and walks with you and takes you to where you need to go or explains to you what to do, even though it's taking time away from their own busy life, you realize how important that is, and hopefully you mimic that and share that kindness forward.
Yeah, no, it is. Again, I think it goes back to empathy. I love that connection. It's like that empathy piece is such a big, important part. And I think it is just like the idea. That's why I wanted to ask, like the challenging part, or like how you like, because I think for me, that's why my biggest learning overall is like every year or every like couple of months, I try and challenge myself, even if it is just where I'm living at or where I'm at. And like for us, it is challenge yourself to move country, but like those little mini challenges that put yourself out of the comfort zone, that like let you experience how other people, like if it's learning new things, understand different people, understand perspectives, it puts you out of a space that you're not too comfortable with. So even if you are choosing to live at home or choosing to live not in moving internationally, it's about how you challenge yourself in those perspectives as well to like bring it together. So yeah, it's so good. Thank you for sharing your takeaways in that space as well. And I think like that goes back to like the international side of it. So as part of Empathy, like the educators, we are looking at Global Light Unite. So trying to see about bringing that personal side into it too, and letting us know what you have experienced and what you have done in different spaces. And so yeah, we'll bring up Craig's photograph, because as a I will call myself a slight Kiwi now, because I've got a residence for life, so I'll take a little bit of ownership in that space. And love your photograph. So yeah, let us know a little bit about your part of the world and why you chose this photo.
Yeah, it's this is from my hometown of Nelson in New Zealand, the top of the South Island, and it's honestly one of the most beautiful parts of the world. You know, it's I grew up there. I spent my first 18, 19 years of my life there, and it's, you know, I miss it terribly, and not being able to go back, you know, not having the choice that we can go back because of COVID is the hardest part about it. But, you know, the thinking about this part of the world and being able to go kayaking and see dolphins and, you know, swim in beautiful water, and the feeling of, you know, clean green, you know, real homegrown vibe. You know, this is actually the hidden secret, I reckon, in my area, which is the golden sand beaches of Kaiteriterre, which, you know, during summer is a haven for tourists, but it's a beautiful place all year round. It's a place we'd go every year. And, you know, as a Kiwi, outdoors is really important. And, you know, being in Asia and this part of the world, the outdoors isn't something that comes so naturally as it does back home. So that's definitely something that I miss. But, you know, this photo brings back lots of memories of, you know, kayaking and hanging out with friends and going to the beach and swimming and, you know, all those things that I hope my kids get to see and experience as well.
Oh, I love it. It's such a good photograph. And then Eileen said, looks very peaceful, and I hope to visit one day. So hopefully we can all meet in New Zealand, and we'll have a great big party there whenever everything opens up. That would be great if we all just get there.
Traders Conference in New Zealand. We'll be there.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll all meet together. That'll be cool. And yeah, I love it there. It's such a beautiful area. And then yeah, and Sandra, what's your little area of the world you would like to share with us?
Yeah, you were asking about something that was meaningful, and just looking through my pictures, and I like this picture because it was we were in the Toronto Pearson Airport. So this is the Toronto Pearson Airport, and it's our family moving from Toronto to Beijing. My son is actually almost taller than me now, so I can't believe how quickly we've sprouted. But another interesting picture that goes with this would be when we moved to Taiwan, which was probably in 2007. And my husband and I both just had 2 suitcases because we didn't have children yet. We had actually our 2 oldest in Taiwan, and then our youngest was born in Canada when we moved back. And if you can see it, I think we had over 20 pieces of luggage. Literally, when we were picked up at Beijing, we took up a whole minibus because we maximized all we could in our luggage space for the plane. And we really moved our entire life here to Beijing. And it brings me warmth because our family sent us off. And if you can just imagine, we had a bus to take all this luggage back to the school, but from home, we pretty much needed 3 cars to transport our luggage, and then another car to transport the people because there's 5 of us. And we had all these friends and family who sent us off and brought our luggage with us. And I think it takes a community to really build your family, your community, to parent. And so this luggage, this picture, even though it reminds me of so many things, it reminds me of home, it reminds me of community, it reminds me of adventure and where we came from. So, yeah.
It's such a beautiful photograph. Thank you for sharing. It's I actually first seen your photograph and I was like, oh, it's such a cute photograph of you and your family. And then I was like, is that their luggage? like I remember seeing, I was like, is that actually one? I realized then actually afterwards, it was like all your suitcases and all. I was like, oh my goodness. But like you say, it's like, you just gather so much as well whenever you're going different places. And like you say, whenever me and Rob first moved to New Zealand, we just finished travel in South America. So we just had backpacks. And now we have like 3 suitcases going from here back. Like, it's like we have so much more stuff. You just like accumulate and yeah. But like you say, it's so nice to have those memories that family, like that, like family and connection. That's the beautiful side of everything that we are doing, and like having people like yourselves on the show and having people on like talking and sharing their experiences. And I think as well, like we have been a little bit vulnerable in what we've been talking about today as well, and like show, like that's where trust comes. That's where like whenever I met you guys and we have shared our perspectives, but also like whenever we were talking like in Singapore, and like that's where I really bonded with you, like about how you've experienced and navigated your world. I remember talking to Craig that first whenever I met him, and talking about how he's navigated being away from home for so long and what does that mean for him, and like just being vulnerable with each other, and like Sandra meeting you in Australia, and just like that connection automatically between seeing you in Australia then seeing you in Singapore, and like knowing each other and feeling that bond is like it's such a nice way to just keep connecting with each other, and like families at the heart of that too. So yeah, thank you for sharing your vulnerabilities as well as sharing your happiness too, which is so nice for us to experience together. And yeah, so we got Sean. Oh, Sean's coming in. We got a bit of a early start with that in America. I think it might be 6 o'clock in the morning at the minute. So we got Sean Giller coming on, and then I always love like the more, because I was even listening to Sean on your show, Craig. It's so weird like how it all just ties together and all just comes together. The more it is connected, like people are just like it feels like a community that we actually are learning and growing together, which is cool.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I'm grateful for the panel that inspires global collaboration. So yeah, I think that's a lovely way to end our little, what we've been talking about is like that global collaboration and keeping reaching out to each other and letting each other know that we are there and sharing those experiences together. So thank you so much for coming on, Empathetic Educators, and letting us know a little bit more about your story and a little bit more about you and how we can join together to create systems across the world. So I'll just put a little shout out for our next show coming up in 2 weeks' time with Lauren Kaufman, who is on the comments at the minute, and amazing Barbara Oakley coming on. We got some really great takeaways from her, learning how to learn. And there's 4 spaces to come on the show with me and Evo and Lauren, and just learning together. So that's going to be next 2 weeks' time on the 8th of May. Oh my goodness, how are we in May already, guys? That's crazy. It's May time. Oh my gosh. May, Nick. I know, how crazy is that? So we got 8th of May coming up. if you want to take part in that and ask Barbara Oakley some questions all about neuroscience, learn how to learn, we'd love to have you on the show. So I'll be putting that out as a tweet in the upcoming weeks as well. So watch out for that. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And it's a bit late. It's actually getting dark now, so I'm excited to go and have a little bit of a sleep. I know that Sandra, you've got another chat coming up later on today. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us. And Craig, thank you so much for coming on as well for what you're working on.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Really good.
Thank you so much, and everyone joining in the comments. Thank you, and if you're listening, let us know about what your takeaways are too for what we've been talking about today. So, thank you, and have a great morning, a great evening, or a great afternoon wherever you are in the world. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.